what can I do from Germany? What can I do from the US? What can I do from Australia, from the UK that would benefit the people back home?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the National Youth Podcast. Today's episode is going to be an interesting episode. As I told you guys last time that we'll be having a very important guest. The topic we're going to be talking about is also very important for you to listen to and learn a lot from it. First of all, my question is, what is true Africanism? I kept asking myself every day ever since I moved out of Africa, how can I be a true African? How can I give back to show that I represent Africa anywhere I go, everywhere I go? This kept bothering me. This kept boiling in my heart and my desires every day. So, as you know, the National Youth Podcast is a podcast where we deliberate and we come up with ideas and brainstorm on how we can promote Africanism. So that is why this is very important for everybody to understand what it is to be an African person and how it is that you can promote Africanism in everywhere you go, anywhere you are, and in whatever you do. In this episode, I'm going to be welcoming our guest today. Our guest today is been in Europe for quite a while, if I'm right, close to a decade. So I'm sure he has a lot of things to talk about and a lot of things to share with every one of us. Please welcome Mr. Dan. While we are bringing our guest, I would like to make a big shout out to our listeners from different geographic locations. Thank you for listening. You are there. I never knew you, but thank you for listening from the UK, from Australia, from South Africa, from Canada, from Benin. Wow, that's amazing. You know, Nigerians also, big shout out to you. People from the United States, and most especially the people from Germany. I really love you guys. Thank you for listening to. Have you guys heard about Magic Boat? MagicBoat.tv is a website where you can watch African films and music and documentaries regarding Africa. So there's a project launch right now. Please support the project. You've seen the link that we had on our description on this particular episode on how you can support the project. The project launch is in August, and they have to complete this raise fund for this. Make your contribution. Any amount that you have will really help in this project. Thank you.
Yeah, so thanks, Jacob, and thanks for having me here.
Pleasure.
So my name is Dan Solomon, and I originally come from Nigeria. I did my primary secondary school in Nigeria, and after that I moved to Russia. So I did my bachelor's in Russia in mechanical engineering. Wow. And when I was done, I wanted to try something else, which was what brought me to Europe, to Germany, where I did my MBA and my master's. And I've been here in Germany, moving around Germany, Netherlands, and sometimes I've also been in the US for the past 10 years. Wow. And yeah, so after my studies, I've worked for different organizations and different functions in strategy consulting, in banking. And currently I'm working as a marketing manager for a chemical company based in Germany, in the south of Germany. So that's a brief history about myself. There's a lot of other extracurricular activities I do, but that is not so important at the moment.
I observed that you have a podcast, Bliss Career. Can you tell us about podcasts?
Yeah. So I started the podcast last year. Okay. So I have a platform called Bliss Career, and the platform is just about helping international students in Germany, in Netherlands. I would say just international students globally, right? So, but currently just focusing on Germany and Netherlands to find their way. So I have experienced a lot of hurdles, a lot of problems, and also experienced even good things, right? And I thought, okay, I have some experience that I can share with the younger generation coming to Europe, mostly from Africa, on helping them to how can they get the confidence they need to get in the job market. And then the podcast is just exactly that.
Wow. So how can people find you on your podcast?
So you can just go to www.blisscareer.de, and there you find all the podcast episodes there. But I'm also very active on LinkedIn. Just look for Dan Solomon, and then you find me on LinkedIn. So maybe you can also probably put the link in the podcast notes, and then you can find me there. And feel free to reach out anytime. Always open.
Okay, great. So now to the question for the day. Psychological homelessness for True Africanism. This is a question I just bumped myself into one day, and I said, okay, this is what deliberating about. This is what talking about for every African person to have this psychology of being homeless, especially when you're outside Africa. Can you tell us what makes True Africanism? Mr. Dan.
As I told you before, right, this is a very, very difficult and interesting question. And so if you look at the term Africanism, right, what is Africanism? I think I would just look at it from a context of Africans who are in the diaspora, or Africans who are out of Nigeria, or not Nigeria, but Africans who are out of the continent, and in countries like Canada, the US, Germany, in Europe, we are everywhere. How can we really so because once you go out, there are a lot of things that you see. There's a lot of like, especially depending on the age you come out, right? So the way we live in Africa is completely different from the way life is abroad. And then True Africanism is, okay, maybe some of those ideas or those upbringing still stick around with us, even though we've been out of the continent for a long time. And I think that is what, from my understanding, True Africanism is. Of course, right, there's one thing that we need to be aware of. Whichever society we find ourselves, we need to try our very best to integrate into those societies, especially if you say you want to live in that place for a long time. So there would definitely be some ideologies that would drop down, right? But those main upbringing, those main ideas of what it means to be an African, some of that still stays. And that would be my definition of True Africanism.
My next question is a little bit interesting for you. I believe it's going to be interesting for me.
Okay.
As well. That like you know, because you said my question is a little bit tricky, but I'm sorry. I just feel like it's something for we to discuss about the psychology behind this homelessness that we Africans feel whenever we are outside Africa. What can you say about the psychology of homelessness for Africans, for True Africanism?
The psychology of homelessness. So there's something, right? You always hear this phrase, there is no place like home. So right. No matter where you find yourself, you would always want to go back home, right? So just look at it from a food perspective, right? So whatever you find yourself, you're trying to find that African food or that Nigerian food or that Ethiopian food that you've been eating at home. But you find yourself, you find yourself in the Netherlands and you cannot find that, right? So that homelessness or that feeling of not being fully satisfied comes from the fact that you are missing something that you really loved back home, and you find it difficult to find it here. So I think that's one of the things that makes the homelessness come into place.
Absolutely.
Another point from my experience is that a lot of times we underestimate the effort needed to fit into the new environment we find ourselves. So it's a lot of work that needs to be done, and especially if you are in a country that don't speak the same language from where you're coming from. So it's a lot of work, right? So you're talking about learning the language, you're talking about understanding the working culture, you're talking about understanding the people, in addition to all the stress you have in your own life, right? So all this in total causes that the homelessness, and you're like, okay, if I'm back home in my country, I always feel at home. I always feel like, hey, this is my place. I can easily go to my friend's place to visit them. So the ease of life sometimes is not experienced if you're not at home.
Yeah.
And this causes some homelessness. There's a long list of stuff that causes homelessness. But I'll just stop here, and then we can just pick it up later.
Yeah, I think you're right. To be honest, I remember the last time I went to Nigeria. When I got to Lagos, and I was inside a car, and I saw this woman making roasted banana, roasted plantain on the roadside. I told the driver, please, can you stop? Can I buy this? Can I just eat this banana and maize? The guy was like, okay, yeah, sure, you can. I felt this, like I'm homely. I felt this like I'm home, eating this roadside roasted banana from a woman on the roadside. These are the things that you can't get in Europe.
No.
So things like that. I think you've actually hit it as you've said it you've said the pain point, the ideology for you to feel like, oh, I can't get this here. I can only get it in my home country. I think this is just one of the psychology that you've just said. My next question, I'm not going to say a question because I'm just going to say it's like form of request for you, if you can just talk about some of the things that could be the causative factor of this psychology. If it is easy for you to say, but you don't have to say it if you know it, because for me, I feel if you know a cause of something, then you can provide a solution to it. But if we don't know it, the root cause or the causes of a particular issue, then we can't actually provide a solution or find a way forward around it. So can you just say one or two things that you could see that, okay, it's major causative factor for this psychology of homelessness?
This is a very tough question. So I think one of the it's you have to know that the world is still experiencing a huge change. So we are it's more like an emancipation. We're undergoing change. And you can see that in all the movements happening, right? So Black Lives Matter, equality for women, the racism topics. So that's a huge movement of things happening, right? And I hope that it's moving to the right direction. But at the moment we are still not there yet. So we are still not in that era where it wouldn't matter where you're coming from, or it wouldn't matter the color of your skin, or the language you speak, or the gender. So we are still not in that age yet.
Yeah.
And until we get to that point, I don't know when we're going to get to that point, right? There will still be a lot of reasons that make you always feel homeless in a country that is not your country.
Your country.
And this is a causative factor that I think it plays a huge role. Now, how can we solve this problem? That is something that also. So for me, what I do, right? So I mentioned this earlier and before, that the term Africanism is just, it just shows that, hey, you have some characteristics, some cultural traits that still show up in your new country.
Yeah.
And one way is that you try your very best to see, okay, what can I do to adjust to this culture, right? So you are not changing your African culture, right? But it doesn't mean that you completely say, okay, yeah, well, I'm not going to try to integrate into this new society. Because for you to be able to enjoy, even for yourself as an individual, your life in this new country, one way would be, okay, how can I do to make sure that I can integrate to the society? Right. Then you'll be accepted, and then maybe that homelessness might reduce. But if we looked at what we talked about of the reasons for homelessness, I think except when you say, hey, I'm out of Africa, I'm never going to go back to the country because of one or two things that happened, you would always feel that, hey, back home is where I feel the most peace, or the place I want to be, right? Not even considering all the, so maybe we'll talk about that later, why you have this huge exodus, right, of people coming out of Africa. That also contributes to it. And then we can talk about that later and say, okay, yeah, what can I do? Why is this? Why do we have a high exodus of people, of young people coming out of the African continent? These are people we need to change the narrative back home, but they are elsewhere helping to make other countries better.
I think you've already given us a way forward. Like, one of the things is, like, you've said that technically cannot be raised fully as long as it can only be reduced as long as you're leaving your home country, moving to another man's land, but if you try to integrate yourself into the society where you are, it can be reduced. But I mean, you can't totally erase that psychology out of your mindset, or your mentality. And you also talked about why we have this huge exodus of migrants coming out of Africa, which is a big topic, to be honest. But I also feel like some other reasons is economic factor, which is one of the main reasons why most people actually migrate from a particular location to another, which Africa is also one of the highest migrants in terms of population in the world after India, I think so. My next question is interesting thing to also talk about. Probably that's going to be the last question to talk about. How can Africans stand out and make a difference abroad?
How can we stand out? So one thing, I'll break this into 2 points. So the first one is that especially for the young ones, right? So what I observed is we have a good base. So for the ones that make it out, right, economically, right, the economical migrants that okay, they're out, they went to school, they graduated, and they want to go into the workforce, and how can they stand out? There's still one thing that I observed, that just because of where we are coming from, right? So you mentioned this before. So the economical situation in the country is really bad, and everyone wants to get out. Right? So you get out, and you find yourself in Germany, you find yourself in the US, you find yourself in Australia, whatever it is, and we start feeling that these countries that we are currently in are doing us a favor, right? You start thinking these countries are doing you a favor by allowing you to be in there. Right. So wherever you find yourself, so you're doing you start working, you start making life for yourself. You still have this at the back of your mind that a country is doing you a favor, the company you're working for is doing you a favor. And then you don't really push the borders, right? my experience here is I see the way Germans are, right? So German, of course, there's still some hierarchy, but it like if you have something to say, you say it. If you have an idea that you think would take the company forward, you do it. You stand out and you say this ABC, right? Of course, I am from Nigeria. I can use the example of Nigeria. Like due to the hierarchical situation in Nigeria, it's really difficult for some time for you to stand up to your elders and tell them, hey, what you're doing is bullshit, right? What you're doing is wrong.
Absolutely.
In the Western world, you can really stand out if you have a brilliant idea and say, hey, I have this idea and I think this idea will be good for this company, for example, right? So never think that a country or a company is doing you a favor. Think about this. Do you think Germany would be letting in people in like highly qualified individuals?
Yeah.
If they are not benefiting from it?
Oh,
right?
That's a good question.
Do you know how for the fact that you're paying this amount of tax, it just shows that, hey, this country needs you. They're not doing you a favor. You are actually creating value.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the more we change this mindset, the more we can start standing out and say, hey, I want to stand out. I know this is not my country. I know this is not my language, but I want to make a difference in this country. And I know I have what it takes. So you move out from that bucket of thinking they're doing you a favor to the bucket of, hey, I am creating value for these guys. While still remaining humble, of course, right? So it's not that you completely go bollocks.
Yeah, I get it.
So I think that's for me one of the ways you can stand out. But in everything we do, we'd never forget that wherever we find ourselves and whatever we find ourselves doing here, we still always need to remember that there's still a lot of work to be done back home. And it's not going to be it's not going to be a waste of resources if you're always thinking, what can I do from Germany? What can I do from the US? What can I do from Australia, from the UK that would benefit the people back home? I don't mean sending money to your family. No, right? There's a lot of stuff that we can do, given the knowledge that we've gotten here, to enhance the development and hopefully push the continent to a better space in the next decades to come.
Yeah. Oh, wow, interesting. I just want to reverse back to your last sentence. I have interest in that. You said that how we can give back to our home. How can we give back to Africa, irrespective of where you are? Can you just let we Nigerians, let we Africans know some of the things they can give back home, apart from money? We of course know monetary aspect is very, very crucial. But one thing I believe is when you're sending money to somebody, of course, it can work for you to send money for people to change their life. But I feel if you provide a means for them to make money, that goes a long way, rather than sending money every now and then for them to just be living just their basic life. But I feel if you provide something more valuable, like setting up anything. I don't have that experience. Can you just give us some highlight? Can you just give us some based on your own experience? What are the things that African people can do, especially Africans in the diaspora can do to support people back home, apart from money?
So money is a big. I know that the remittance going back home is a lot. All right, yes. It's a lot of money. I think in Nigeria last 2 years ago was 25 billion. But it only benefits the immediate family. And I know a lot of Nigerians in diaspora, especially, and other Africans in diaspora as well. There's one hurdle, and the hurdle is trust and finding the right business to invest in. I know a lot of people are actually open to do that, right? Because come on, see, what can you do in Europe, right? So everything works here, right? Everything works in Germany.
Everything
What do you
works
want to
here.
improve?
Yeah.
What do you want to improve? So I have these discussions a lot of times with my friends. I'm like, see, you can just facelift something that works in Germany, and then take it to Nigeria, and then okay, you don't just completely facelift it, right? You take it, the idea, and then you adjust it to
fit into
the Nigerian or the African context.
Yeah, that's
right. So you don't have to break your brain to think, okay, idea generation, all this kind of stuff. The ideas are there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the difficulty is, first of all, the ease of doing business, right? A lot of times, some African countries frustrate your life. Like they need to be open to people who want this and say, okay, we have this business proposal for you, right? Now we're gonna take care of this. You invest your money, you get XYZ%. Like if you can create a trust system, you would find people. I know a lot of people in diaspora who are really itching to invest back home, but the system is not there. Yeah. Right. The trust is not there. Like you want to put in your money where you can trust it, right?
That's right.
And one way you could do that, you could say, okay, yeah, well, you have this experience abroad. Are you willing to take the leap to say, I want to go back to Nigeria? Before I go there, right? Let's take a step back.
Okay.
Like if you look at Germany, you know the backbone of the German economy. The backbone of the German economy is not Siemens, it's not Bosch, right? It's not BASF. Of course, I know these companies are the ones that are the main demand players.
Yeah.
But the backbone of the German economy are companies that we call Mittelstand companies. Like these are small SCMs, right? Small and medium enterprises. Like there are tons of them in Germany, millions of them.
Wow.
They are the ones that you can see these small engineering companies. You say Germany is like made in Germany, right? Like if you go to Stuttgart, you go to this small southern states, right? You see lots of them employing people, making billions. You see a small family company making $1 billion euro a year in revenue.
Wow.
Right? These are the backbone of the economy, right? Making these mechanical parts, doing ABC, like they are the ones feeding in, and then you have them employing people.
Yeah.
This is what we need. We need such environment where you have these small enterprises employing a lot of people. And if you have a lot of experience from diaspora of what you can do, right? And you're willing to take the leap, because you need to be able to take the leap to say, okay, I want to leave my day-to-day job in Europe, go back to Nigeria and make something happen there. But that takes guts, right? Because the thing is, you need to have a strong mind. Otherwise, you frustrate your life back home. So that is true. But I think we just need to think of not just thinking of the ideas. There are a lot of ideas out there. We just need to start implementing them. And we are the ones that can start doing that. You could wake up tomorrow and say, hey, well, I know Germany is a good place to be, but I want to do something for Nigeria. And you know the secret?
Yeah.
Like the return on investment, right? If you can pass those hurdles, those ease of doing business, those government officials trying to frustrate your life and not making life easy for you to set up something. If you can pass those hurdles and you set up something that is of value to the economy, the return on investment, forget about your job that you're doing here, right? It's like how much do they pay you here? Like they don't, like how much do you pay if you're doing a day-to-day job? Like how much would you get? Like if you can take that leap and go to Nigeria, create a product, right? That people can, that a product that people need and they can buy, it's gonna be on the next level for you on the financial level. But we'll just need to be able to take the leap.
Wow. That's interesting for everyone listening. I mean, somebody is telling you, like we have always been saying on this podcast, no place like home. Let's just have that one at the back of our mind. Whatever you do, always think about how you can make an impact back home. on this note, it would be nice if you can give us something like a summary of what we've discussed for every listener out there to have as a takeaway.
Okay. Yeah. So I will start with the first question that you asked me. What is true Africanism, right? And we said it's actually having those traits from back home in the country you find yourself, but not letting go of those. But we mentioned something important, that it is important that despite that you try your very best to integrate in any society you find yourself. And then we went on to say, okay, the homelessness, why do we feel homeless? Hey, there is no place like home. From the food, the culture, the people, the environment, the weather, all this contributes to you feeling homeless and always wanting to go back. But you can change. The second to the last topic we talked about was how can we as Africans stand out abroad? And then we said, never think that the country that is taking you in or the company you're working for is doing you a favor. And once, if we can change that mindset to start knowing that, hey, we are creating value for the society. Germany did not invest a dime in my primary school education, in my bachelor's. Germany did not invest a dime in that, right? Nigeria invested a lot of money in my primary school education, my secondary school education. I went to Russia for my bachelor's. So in terms of the money Germany spends in my education, is practically not a lot. However, what they're getting from my salary every month, my contribution to the society is enormous, right? So I know that I am creating value to this country, and I know I'm creating value to the company I'm working for. And if I change that mindset, then I will be able to grow even further, because I would leave my hole, the hole I've been hiding myself, and come out of that, and you'll be able to share your ideas with your senior management, share your ideas with your company, and say, hey, I think I'm good at this, I think I want to do this. And that's one way we can stand out. And then finally, we talked about, hey, okay, how can we always remember to contribute back at home, right? Other than just sending money, right? Teach me how to fish, don't give me the fish. And then how can we use that, right? I know, yes, we are in a better place today because we got out, but there are 200 million people in Nigeria. There are almost 1 billion people in Africa. Not all of them can come out. How can we change the society that tomorrow there won't be need for us to say, I want to leave Africa, I want to leave Nigeria? We create what we want back home, and then we can enjoy that. Maybe you are not going to be the one to enjoy it, but your children or your children to come. But we need to start thinking of those ideas, and not just thinking of the ideas, because I know there are tons of ideas out there. But some of us need to take the leap and put it into action. And I think hopefully I was able to summarize everything we talked about today. And I think these were the main topics.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dan Solomon. We really appreciate you coming and for taking your precious time as well. So on behalf of myself and all the listeners, we also want to say thank you to you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to this episode. Looking forward for you to listen to the next episode. Bye for now. Thank you very much.